Happy New Year. Welcome. We're going to begin with what we call a zipper song. Only one word changes in the 4 verses we're going to sing, and it's got 2 parts. There's a bottom and a top. I'm going to do the bottom, and Edie's going to do the top. So please rise in body or spirit and join in singing 368. Now let us sing. You may be seated. Please join in the chalice lighting words. We light this chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is the church of the open mind. This is the church of the helping hands. This is the church of the loving heart. Together, we care for the church and each other. Welcome. My name is the Reverend Alice Diebel, and I'm the worship leader today. Our pulpit is filled with Edie Holder. Our regular minister, the Reverend Mitra Jafarzadeh, is on sabbatical. She will return January 15th, so next Sunday is my last Sunday with you. So, yeah, it's been hard. If you are new with us or visiting, please check our guest literature out front and sign our guest book to receive information by email. And we welcome you here. Stay for coffee and conversation after in our fellowship hall. We're just really glad to see you. Please put your phones in worship mode, and we will begin. We'll have an affirmation written by Reverend William Schultz. This is the mission of our faith, to teach the fragile art of hospitality, to revere both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to witness to all that we must hold the whole world in our hands. Our first hymn is number 84, How Far Can Reach a Smile. This may be unfamiliar, so Peng Cheng is going to play it through once. Please be seated. This is a time in our service where we recognize any joys and concerns that you have held in your hearts that you would like to share, either silently by placing a stone in the sand or in writing. You can bring it up and we'll share it publicly if you would like. If you're watching us from home and you want to put a joy or sorrow in the chat, we will try and pick that up as well.
Now we're going to read a story, the story of the other wise man, and we're going to trade off so that you don't get tired of one voice or the other. The story of the other wise men. The 3 wise men followed the star of Bethlehem and found the king. The 4th wise man sold all his possessions that he too might bring worthy gifts for the Christ child. In his girdle he carried the sapphire, the ruby, the pearl. But he was delayed. Would he ever reach the king? After Artaban had been delayed on his journey by the sickness of a Hebrew peasant, he rode fast across the plain, only to find the 3 magi had gone on before. So he must return to Babylon, sell his sapphire, and provide camels to cross the desert. At last, he arrived at Bethlehem. The streets of the village Bethlehem seemed to be deserted, and Artaban wondered whether the men had all gone up the hill pastures to bring down their sheep. From the open door of a low stone cottage, he heard the sound of a woman's voice singing softly. He entered and found a young mother hushing her baby to rest. She told him of days ago and how a star had guided them to the place where Joseph of Nazareth was lodging with his wife and her newborn child, and how they had paid reverence to the child and given him many gifts. And she ended by saying, "The man of Nazareth took the babe and his mother and fled away that same night secretly, and it is whispered that they were going far away to Egypt." Artaban listened to her gentle, timid speech, and the child in her arms looked up in his face and smiled, stretching out its rosy hands to grasp at the winged circle of gold on his breast. He spoke, "And so it has not seemed good to the God of wisdom to reward my search so soon and so easily. The one who I seek has gone before me, and now I must follow the king to Egypt." The young mother laid the babe in its cradle and rose to minister to the wants of the stranger guest that fate had brought into her house. She set food before him, the plain fare of the peasants. Artaban accepted it gratefully, and as he ate, the child fell into a happy slumber and murmured sweetly in its dreams, and a great peace filled the quiet room.
But suddenly there came the noise of wild confusion and uproar in the streets of the village, a shrieking and wailing of women's voices, and a clangor of brazen trumpets, and a clashing of swords, and a desperate cry. The soldiers of Herod! They are killing our children." The young mother's face grew white with terror. She clasped her child to her bosom, crouched motionless in the darkest corner of the room, covering him with folds of her robe, lest he should wake and cry. But Artaban went quickly and stood in the doorway of the house. His broad shoulders filled the portals from side to side, and the peak of his white cap all but reached the lintel. The soldiers came hurrying down the street with bloody hands and dripping swords. At the sight of the stranger in the imposing dress, they hesitated with surprise. The captain of the band approached the threshold to thrust him aside, but Artaban did not stir. His face was as calm as though he were watching the stars, and in his eyes there burned a steady radiance. He held the soldier silently for an instant, and then said in a low voice, "I am alone in this place, and I am waiting to give this jewel to the prudent captain who will leave me in peace." He showed the ruby glistening in the hollow of his hand like a great drop of blood. The captain was amazed at the splendor of the gem. The pupils of his eyes expanded with desire, and the hard lines of greed wrinkled around his lips. He stretched out his hand and took the ruby. "March on," he cried to his men. "There is no child here. This house is still." The clamor and clang of arms passed down the street. Artaban re-entered the cottage. He turned his face to the east and prayed. "God of truth, forgive my sin. I have said the thing that is not, and saved the life of the child. And 2 of my gifts are gone. I have spent for man that which was meant for God. Shall I ever be worthy to see the face of the King? Because thou hast saved the life of my little one, may the Lord bless thee and keep thee. May the Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace," prayed the mother.
And then, in the swiftly passing years, Artaban was moving among the throngs of men in the populous Egypt, seeking everywhere for traces of the household that had come down from Bethlehem. He stood at the foot of the pyramids, which lifted their sharp points into the intense saffron glow of the sunset sky. He looked up into the vast countenance of the crouching Sphinx and vainly tried to read the meaning of the calm eyes and smiling mouth. Was it indeed the mockery of all effort and all aspiration? Artaban was sitting in an obscure house of Alexandria, taking counsel with a Hebrew rabbi. The venerable man, bending over the rolls of parchment, said, "And remember, my son, the king whom you are seeking is not to be found in a palace, nor among the rich and powerful. This I know, those who seek him will do well to look among the poor and the lowly, the sorrowful and the oppressed. The other wise men could be seen again and again, traveling from place to place and searching among the people of the dispersion, with whom the little family from Bethlehem might, perhaps, have found a refuge. He passed through countries where famine lay heavy upon the land, and the poor were crying for bread. He made his dwelling in plague-stricken cities, where the sick were languishing in the bitter companionship of the helpless misery. He visited the oppressed and the afflicted in the gloom of subterranean prisons and the crowded wretchedness of slave markets and weary toil of galley ships. In all this populous and intricate world of anguish, though he found none to worship, he found many to help. He fed the hungry and clothed the naked and healed the sick and comforted the captive, and his years went by more swiftly than the weaver's shuttle that flashed back and forth through the loom while the web grows and the invisible pattern is completed. It seemed almost as if he had forgotten his quest. But once he stood alone at sunrise, waiting at the gate of a Roman prison. He had taken from a secret resting place in his bosom the pearl, the last of his jewels. As he looked at it, a mellow luster, a soft and glowing light, full of shifting gleams of azure and rose, trembled upon its surface. It seemed almost to absorb some reflection of the colors of the lost sapphire and ruby.
33 years of the life Artaban had passed away, and he was still a pilgrim and a seeker after light. His hair, once darker than the cliffs of Zagros, was now white as the wintry snow that covered them. His eyes, that once flashed like the flames of fire, were dull as embers, smoldering among the ashes. Worn and weary and ready to die, but still looking for the king, he had come for the last time to Jerusalem. He had often visited the holy city before, and had searched through all its lanes and crowded hovels and black prisons without finding any trace of the family of the Nazarenes who had fled from Bethlehem long ago. But now it seemed as if he must make one more effort, and something whispered in his heart that at last he might succeed. It was the season of the Passover. The city was thronged with strangers. The children of Israel, scattered in far lands, had returned to the temple for the great feast, and there had been a confusion of tongues in the streets for many days. But on this day, there was singular agitation visible in the multitude. The sky was veiled with a portentous gloom, and currents of excitement seemed to flash through the crowd like the thrill which shakes the forest on the eve of a storm. A secret tide was sweeping them all one way. The clatter of sandals and the soft, thick sound of thousands of bare feet shuffling over the stones flowed unceasingly along the streets that led to the Damascus gate. Artaban joined company with a group of people from his own country, Parthian Jews, who had come up to keep the Passover, and inquired of them the cause of the tumult and where they were going. "We are going," they answered, "to the place called Golgotha. Jesus of Nazareth is the man who had done many wonderful works among the people, so that they love him greatly. But the priests and elders have said that he must die, because he gave himself out to be the Son of God. And Pilate has sent him to the cross, because he said that he was the King of the Jews."
How strangely these familiar words fell upon the tired heart of Artaban. It had led him for a lifetime over land and sea, and now they came to him darkly and mysteriously like a message of despair. The king had arisen, but he had been denied and cast out. He was about to perish. Perhaps he was dying already. Could it be the same who had been born in Bethlehem 33 years ago, at whose birth the star had appeared in heaven, and of whose coming the prophets had spoken? Artaban's heart beat unsteadily, It may be that I shall find the king at last in the hands of his enemies and shall come in time to offer my pearl for his ransom before he dies." So the old man followed the multitudes with slow and painful steps toward the Damascus gate of the city. Just beyond the entrance of the guardhouse, a troop of Macedonian soldiers came down the street, dragging a young girl with torn dress and disheveled hair. As the Magian paused to look at her with compassion, she broke suddenly from the hands of her tormentors and threw herself at his feet, clasping him around the knees. She had seen his white cap and winged circle on his breast. "Have pity on me," she cried, "and save me for the sake of the God of purity. I also am a daughter of the true religion which is taught of the Magi. My father was a merchant of Parthia, but he is dead, and I am seized for his debts to be sold as a slave. Save me from worse than death."
Artaban trembled. It was the old conflict in his soul, the conflict between the expectation of faith and the impulse of love. Twice the gift which he had consecrated to the worship of religion had been drawn from his hand to the service of humanity. This was the third trial, the ultimate probation, the final irrevocable choice. Was it his great opportunity or his last temptation? He could not tell. The only thing that was clear in the darkness of his mind, it was inevitable. And does not the inevitable come from God? One thing only was sure to his divided heart: to rescue this helpless girl would be a true deed of love. And is not love the light of the soul? He took the pearl from his bosom. Never had it seemed so luminous, so radiant, so full of tender, living luster. He laid it in the hand of the slave woman. "This is thy ransom, daughter. It is the last of my treasures, which I kept for the king." While he spoke, the darkness of the sky thickened, and shuddered tremors ran throughout the earth. The walls of the house rocked to and fro. Stones loosened and crashed into the street. Dust clouds filled the air. The soldiers fled in terror, reeling like drunken men. But Artaban and the girl whom he had ransomed crouched helpless beneath the wall of the praetorium. What had he to fear? What had he to live for? He had given away the last remnant of his tribute for the king. The quest was over, and it had failed.
A heavy tile, shaken from the roof, fell and struck the old man on the temple. He lay breathless and pale, with his gray head resting on the young girl's shoulder and the blood trickling from the wound. As she bent over him, fearing that he was dead, there came a voice through the twilight, very small and still, like the music sounding from a distance, in which the notes are clear but the words are lost. The girl turned to see if someone had spoken from the window above them, but she saw no one. The old man's lips began to move, as if in answer, and she heard him say in Parthian tongue, "Not so, my lord, for when saw I thee and hungered and fed thee, or thirsty and gave thee drink? When saw I thee a stranger and took thee in, or naked and clothed thee? When saw I thee sick or in prison and came unto thee? 33 years have I looked for thee, but I have never seen thy face, nor ministered to thee, my king." He ceased, and the sweet voice came again. And again the maid heard it, very faintly and far away, but now it seemed as though she understood the words. "Verily, I say unto thee, inasmuch as thou hast done it unto one of the least of these my brothers, thou hast done it unto me." A calm radiance of wonder and joy lighted the pale face of Artaban, like the first ray of dawn on a snowy mountain peak. One long last breath of relief gently from his lips. His journey was ended. His treasures were accepted. The other wise men had found the king. Now, please stand as you're able, and we're going to sing hymn 1002, Comfort Me. Whoops, wrong place.
Singing the kids out first.
We got to sing the kid. I can't read this script here. Please join us in singing the children out.
It's Children's Blessing, puncturing.
We can sing it. May your mind be open to new learning. May your lips bring truth into the world. May your heart know love and your hands do the work of justice. As you go your way, as you go your way, in peace, go your way, in peace. May your mind be open to new learning. May your lips bring truth into the world. May your heart know love and your hands do the work of justice. As you go your way, as you go your way, as you go your way, in peace.
Yay. Will you join me, please, in a spirit of prayer or meditation? Living Spirit that moves within us and among us, we're grateful for the abundant love that's in our hearts today as we come together to celebrate life and our service to the world. We hold all those who have been affected by sickness or death in our hearts with tender love. May they find comfort in this community of care. For all who are experiencing something new in life, some sort of joy or anticipation, we celebrate with you as well. For the global troubles we face, war in Europe, climate change, wars in Ethiopia and other places. We pray for peace. May we lift a cup of kindness then for all that's gone before as we look forward to the new year. Amen, and blessed be. This is the time in our service where we will collect our offering. The offering today, we usually collect for the minister's discretionary fund on Christmas Eve, but we canceled that service. So we're going to collect that today. These funds support members and neighbors in need with small amounts of money in crisis situations. We ask that you give as much as you are willing and able to give. You can also give to this fund online today or any time of year. We are grateful now as we receive your generous offering.
Greetings to all St. Johners and anyone who may visit and hear my words, to those here in our sanctuary and to those attending online. First, I want to give an FYI to younger folks who might not understand the reference on the front of the bulletin. It says, I'll read it exactly, if I can find it. I am a human being. Do not fold, spindle, or mutilate. The reference, some of you might not understand, is back in the 60s and 70s, using a computer usually involved punch cards, which had to be punched, and if you fold, spindle, or mutilate them, they did not, the card reader would not read them. It also was a horrible thing if you dropped your deck on the way to submitting it, which probably happened to many of us. Anyhow, so I picked the story about a fourth wise man because we are in the season of the wise men attending to Jesus' birth. This Friday, January 6th, is the day that Western Christianity celebrates the Magi on the day of Epiphany. And I'm going to read from my Bible to prove you that I've actually read the Bible. It looks a little worn. It was given to me when I was 13 years old, and I never got it open to the right place. No, here it is. Okay. Matthew chapter 2, verse 1 through 12. Now, when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and have come to worship him. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him, and assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They told him, In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it is written by the prophets, And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who will govern my people Israel. Then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word that I too may come and worship him. When they had heard the king, they went on their way. And lo, the star which they had seen in the east went before them, till it came to rest over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they fell down and worshipped him. Then opening their treasures, they offered him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country by another way. So, as an aside, the gifts had special symbolic meanings. Gold signified Jesus' status as King of the Jews. Frankincense represented the infant's divinity and identity as the Son of God, and myrrh touched upon Jesus' mortality, as it was used to bury folks. As Unitarian Universalists, while the biblical story is important from a traditional viewpoint, since many of us don't call ourselves Christian, I think its relevance to us is limited. Henry Van Dyke Jr. wrote the story of the other wise man in 1895. He was born in 1852 and died in 1933. He was an American author, educator, diplomat, and Presbyterian clergy. This story was written as a novelette or long story, and you heard a condensed version. To me, this story gets to the heart of Unitarian Universalism, even though its language is very biblical in its own way, but still. Most of us don't believe in a Savior who will come and save us from our misfortunes. What we do believe in is community, working together to care for each other and others around us. Most UUs find that social justice activities are important. Our church has participated in many such activities over the years. We currently are in coalition with other churches to give asylum to an immigrant family housed at Clifton Methodist. Our sanctuary and immigration team is a member of the Immigration Dignity Coalition and participates in many other activities. Stay tuned, there will be announcements. Also, we are stepping up in 2023 to make a larger contribution to host homeless families in Cincinnati through Found House. There is a monthly plate offering to area agencies offering services for those in need. Many folks are or become involved volunteering with those agencies. Within our congregation, we have a caring circle to help our own with rides, meals, and other services. Friends help friends and acquaintances. Also, there is the minister's discretionary fund that helps members and others with small amounts of money. But before we pat ourselves too much on the back, bear with me, as I would like to apply the thought behind the story that we minister to each other even further. We don't always agree with each other. In fact, just last week, I was wishing that people would just do the things the way I want instead of having their own ideas. I don't even know where that thought came from, as I have definitely lived long enough to know that will never happen. Sometimes these disagreements are resolved amicably, other times they cause dissension in our community. I know that there are hard feelings in existence in our church. I want to address those words and actions that hurt others, especially those that were not intended to be hurtful. If there was intention, that is a whole other issue. But I think most of us want to be peaceful. I had a boyfriend many years ago who said, most people are doing the best they can. If they were capable of doing better, they would. This means that most of the total screw-ups don't intend to be screw-ups. But they are in a place where they cannot see or find a way to be better, even though you or I could look at them and say, why on earth are you doing that? Many of you know that I collect quotes. Here's one I found by Cynthia J. Gould. Please don't criticize me for being human. It's my most redeeming feature. Now, from Harriet Cole, who writes a column called Sense and Sensitivity, in a recent column, there's a mantra that I was taught in my spiritual community: see God in each other. I practice that actively when I am with my family. Think about it. How would you treat someone if you looked at them and imagined that there is divinity in them? What happens for me is that I look with a softer gaze. I assume the positive in whatever they say or do. I believe that they have something worthwhile to share, even if it takes them a bit too long to tell a story. I trust that I am in the right place at the right time with the right people. I practice patience when I'm feeling agitated. It really works to take a breath, look around, and choose to see the best in others. It also ignites the same loving glance to travel around the room and become a covenant of goodness, replacing any negativity that may be festering. Try it today. Breathe. Choose to see God in each other. So, to change the subject slightly, I wouldn't be me if I didn't give a COVID update when given the chance to speak. Last January, Hamilton County and surrounding counties spiked cases at greater than 300 per day per 100,000 people. That's why we stopped serving coffee for January and parts of February. As of last week, the cases in Southwest Ohio and Northern Kentucky are between 10 to 20 cases per day per 100,000 people. More than a tenfold difference. I am mildly hopeful that this winter will not be as difficult as 2021 and 2022. COVID-19 is evolving into a disease that we will have to learn to live with. While the pandemic phase is hopefully ending, we have been changed by it. It has affected us personally, our church, and our community in ways that are still unfolding. It has been difficult for all ages. The news reports that the mental health impacts are tremendous, and people act out when they're having mental health issues. So, in the new year, Can we pledge to watch what and how we say and do things? Then, if something doesn't go the way it was intended, don't be afraid to make amends with all parties involved. I really like the Yom Kippur practice of closing the book of life for the previous year by making amends to all those whom you have wronged. Then you can open the book of life for the next year with a clean slate. To me, this is better than the Catholic practice of confessing your sins to a priest who tells you to say so many Hail Marys and you are forgiven. The forgiveness, or at least acknowledgement or atonement, should rest with those you have wronged. I also think this practice is better than the Protestant tradition of emphasizing that all of us are sinners who need redemption from above. Redemption or reparation resides within those around us with whom we interact. And in actuality, I think making amends with and forgiving each other is a more difficult task than saying a few Our Fathers or being made to feel bad over our sins. Right. Pat Brown sent me a text wishing me a happy Nay year, spelled N-E-E. Her next text corrected her typo by saying Nay is born in French. Let us make amends so any we have wronged and be born again so that we can start 2023 with a fresh slate. Thanks, Pat. I want St. John's to be a healthy, functioning community of friends who don't get caught up in nursing slights because we pledge to work out differences and then reach out into the community and world with our good news and aid. We choose to see God in each other. I shall close with a snippet from the poem The Star Splitter by Robert Frost. If one by one we counted people out, for the least sin, it wouldn't take us long to get so we had no one left to live with. For to be social is to be forgiving. Now, please, FYI, that's the first sermon I've ever given. I've stood up here and made like 3 or 4 minutes of something, but not a full long whatever. So now, please stand in body or spirit, and let's sing hymn 1002, Comfort Me. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a few announcements this morning. Our next opportunity to help with the Found House that Edie mentioned is going to be Friday, January 13th. Please join the team that's going to provide supper and fun for the families who are unhoused. There's a sign-up genius available. Let's keep our tradition of hospitality strong throughout this cold winter. Your help with Found House at other congregations will be a helpful experience to us at St. John's when we open our doors to these neighbors. Please contact Wanda Crawford with questions. You may have heard before, and this is a celebration that's starting soon, celebrate the 12 Days of Christmas at the Barn, the Women's Art Club of Cincinnati. This exhibit is by Edith Sasseret Marrero and provides a glimpse into her life journey. It's open only through January 6th. And finally, next Sunday at 12:30 in our Kroll Pfeiffer Fellowship Hall will be our New to UU class. If you are newer to Unitarian Universalism and want to learn a little bit more about this faith, please join me and Pat Brown. We will serve you lunch. It will be informal and fun. Please let Pat Brown know, and she's in the back there, and if you're online, it's patbrown3250@gmail.com. So please let us know if you're coming. We look forward to seeing you there. Our closing hymn is number 1014, Answering the Call of Love. Please rise in body or spirit and join in singing 1014.
Too many papers up here. All right. I want to read a poem written by Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker, UU theologian and past president of Star King School for the Ministry in Berkeley, California. Choose to bless the world. Your gifts, Whatever you discover them to be can be used to bless or curse the world. The mind's power, the strength of the hands, the reaches of the heart, the gift of speaking, listening, imagining, seeing, waiting. Any of these can serve to feed the hungry, bind up wounds, welcome the stranger, praise what is sacred, do the work of justice, or offer love. Any of these can draw down the prison door, hoard bread, abandon the poor, obscure what is holy, comply with injustice, or withhold love. You must answer this question. What will you do with your gifts? Choose to bless the world. The choice to bless the world is more than an act of will, a moving forward into the world with the intention to do good. It is an act of recognition, a confession of surprise, a grateful acknowledgement that in the midst of a broken world, unspeakable beauty, grace, and mystery abide. There is an embrace of kindness that encompasses all life, even yours. And while there is injustice, an aesthetization, or evil, there moves a holy disturbance, a benevolent rage, a revolutionary love, protesting, urging, insisting that which is sacred will not be defiled. Those who bless the world live their life in a gesture of thanks for this beauty and this rage. The choice to bless the world can take you into solitude, to search for the sources of power and grace, native wisdom, healing, and liberation. More, the choice will draw you into community, the endeavor shared, the heritage passed on, the companionship of struggle, the importance of keeping faith, the life of ritual and praise, the comfort of human friendship, the company of earth, the chorus of life welcoming you. None of us alone can save the world. Together, that is another possibility, waiting.
Friends, these words come from the Reverend Molly Hochgarten. Let this be the year we release our wish for resolution. None of the available endings appeal anyway, but let it be unformed and sticky, rising, and let it be soft for God's sake. This year let us need and learn to stretch. Let this be the year we rest somewhere warm, and when we have doubled the dream of freedom, let this be the year we fill every belly with the possible and feast. Go in peace, friends. Return again in love.